Okay, so it's 5:32, we're going ahead and starting policy. Okay, so, cause over here, this, yeah, we moved this up to under here because there wasn't a decent flow on this form. And then it went, all your green is new. We
And I just
kept that strikeout, but then we just did, to accommodate this and what this was about, we did the due process procedures identified here so that the parent could go back and reflect on what those due process, and because this was on the policy is why this language is here. And then we cleaned it up to say that if a threat assessment is needed, then after completion, this is what could happen. Because when you just jump into this paragraph, it's not really walking the parent through the processes, which is necessary. And then there's more green language.
Not all of that green language is mine.
Okay. So that's what I'm saying. I really think because there's so much that's been added over here, let's fix the policy or see what revisions are being requested from either you or Rusty or whomever. And then we'll have to make sure that the forms align with the policy language, because there's no point in having forms say one thing and the policy another.
I agree completely. Okay. Would it be helpful for me to talk through those proposed changes, or would you rather just start at the top?
What would everybody else like?
I don't have a preference.
Hearing it, talking through it, I think works.
Well, when we did go through it, we did read from top to bottom.
Yeah,
we read through
my
the whole
guess is,
thing.
because I wasn't here the last couple of meetings, you've already done some of that work.
Oh yeah.
So to be more efficient, maybe talking through where the changes are at, so the whole thing probably is more efficient, but
right.
Efficient isn't always best, but that would be my vote based on what I.
Efficient is always best, but when you're
well,
cutting
corners,
I
just haven't been here a week or two, so I don't want to cut too many
Gotcha.
corners and say let's get to the chase. But I think the legwork's been done already, and we need to get to where the changes need to be.
So
that's my understanding.
Okay.
I have no idea because I don't know how this flows. So someone. I won't keep saying you because I don't know who.
And I did all of this on here.
On this one, okay.
From what I can tell, I think that is all my language. And so what I did is just in that section, it's isolated to just that one area. I separated out due process that we follow, required by state statute and as spelled out in IDAPA. The due process for any time there is a student who is suspended. Which is a different process than if there is a threat assessment. Previously, it was all combined, which in my opinion is the source of a lot of confusion. To say to every student who is suspended that they fall somewhere on the continuum of a threat assessment, even if it is no threat, is just inherently a little bit confusing to me. And so that's that first part of my green language is saying these are our due process that every student goes through. And then the second part, which you're showing right now, is if a threat assessment is completed, these are the steps that are followed.
Okay, but we haven't read it, explain when we determine whether or not a threat assessment is going to be completed?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so, classroom, then the child's parent guardian shall be contacted to be made aware. I gotta read into it because I can't just figure out, because I don't know what we have before.
Get the context, I like it.
No person is employed, who is employed or anything, cause to be, no corporal punishment, that's a good thing. The superintendent or building principal may temporarily suspend any student for disciplinary reasons, including student harassment, intimidation, bullying, or cyberbullying, or for other conduct disruptive of good order or of the instructional effectiveness of the school. Prior to temporarily suspending any student, the superintendent or principal shall hold an informal hearing on the reasons for the suspension. During an informal hearing, parents and students have the opportunity to challenge the reason for a temporary suspension. Due process procedures are as follows. Student interviews will take place where all students involved will have an adequate chance to tell their side of the story. Okay, what is the informal hearing?
The informal hearing, according to the law, really is just notification to the student, and then since they're a minor, by default, their parent, that this suspension is happening, and talking through the evidence to get to that point.
That's interesting, I'll have to read that, because that's really not what a hearing is, but I guess that's what we're calling it. Because to me, the hearing is gathering all the information, presenting all the evidences, and then saying, this is what's happening to you. What we're saying is the informal hearing is we're calling parents, letting them know we've already made this decision. So there's no hearing. Correct? Because we've made the decision based on the information we've
But at
gathered.
that time, they would say, I mean.
But that's not a hearing. That's a notification to parents, we're suspending your kiddo.
Well, I think,
I mean, if we're gonna mince words.
well, we're mincing. So
We are
let's- So
mincing.
let's continue.
Okay.
I think it just, the only difference I hear in what you're saying from what I said is who's involved.
Well, we have due process procedures for what? What's that due process for?
For students.
For what?
I'm sorry, I don't
Okay.
know where you're going.
We're doing due process for a reason.
Sure.
What is that reason? Because it's a student's rights to have due process for what? A fair hearing? What is that hearing? You calling the parent, the principal calling the parent saying we're suspending your kid. That's not a fair hearing. That's, we've gathered information, we've made a decision, and so I guess I'm just cautioned by, since we're making such significant changes of what we've traditionally had in place, not gonna say it was right, what we've traditionally had in place, I'm just curious if we're making all the correct changes.
Do you think it's
So-
just maybe out of place?
That's what I'm wondering,
Because it
to
goes,
me.
it talks about the informal hearing.
Mhm.
Parents and students have the opportunity to challenge the reasons for a temporary suspension, and then it goes into the explanation of due process.
Right, because it says during the informal hearing, parents and students have the opportunity to challenge the reasons. But you're not giving them a hearing. You're calling them to say your kid's suspended because of X, Y, Z. That's not a hearing. That's just notification. Look, we've investigated, little Johnny stuck, not that we would suspend a kid for this, but gum on a chair, we reviewed the video, the gum was there, we're suspending your kid for 3 days. That's not a hearing. That's doing your due diligence to make sure that you have enough evidence to support the choices you're making. It's just,
Does
that,
Well, and I think we do have to be,
I mean, you
we
have to be
careful here too.
Right.
You know, because the original question, I think the way you asked it was perfect, Michelle. What does the law say? Like, how does the law define an informal hearing from the school side for a suspension? And I stand by the answer that I gave. I guess agree with it or disagree with it. Like that is what the law considers to be an informal hearing, is that notification, because there is an opportunity to discuss at that time. Another thing, I believe I put it in there in my suggested language, was just a notice that there still is a grievance process too. Like there still is an opportunity to even come back after the fact and talk to the building principal and or the superintendent, ultimately the school board, if they feel like their student was wrongly suspended.
okay, so then I guess what I hear you saying is the informal hearing is done without the student and the parents. The informal.
Typically done with the student, at least my experience. So we would have that, tell me what happened, it's that student's chance to tell what they know about that situation, their side of the story, how they were involved, you know, so you
Without their
gather-
parents present, right?
Typically
Nine
in ours,
typically,
yeah,
yeah.
like you're gonna get that fact-finding piece of things, and then
Right,
depending on where it
right.
goes from there.
Yeah.
And so it's that initial kind of informal where there's no consequences yet, as you go through the fact-finding pieces of things and they admit to, or, you know, whatever, and you know what's happening. So it's usually
Okay.
just the student,
And from that.
sometimes the parent, and then your school administrator or whoever.
Yeah.
So I guess what would be, I'm speaking as a parent.
Mhm.
What would be confusing for me is to say, so you sat little Johnny down, you had the conversation with him, so if that was considered the informal hearing, then this wouldn't make sense, because it says during the informal hearing, parents and students have the opportunity to challenge the reason for a temporary suspension, so that's already saying little Johnny's already suspended. So it wouldn't be.
That steps into the grievance. You know, I don't, as a parent, I don't agree with what, so then you,
But I'm saying the language for just in that one sentence, would it be correct if the informal hearing was having the conversation, like if I'm
Mhm.
saying, hey, tell me what happened, and you're saying this is the informal hearing, I haven't made the conclusion that you're suspended yet. But that's saying the informal hearing is giving you the opportunity to challenge the reasons for the decision that was already made, you're already suspended.
yeah.
So.
Right.
Yeah, I guess, you know, and I don't mean to contend to this unnecessarily, but if I suspend a student and call a parent, I mean, do they not have the opportunity at that point in time to challenge the reasons for the temporary suspension? Like, even if I'm calling to notify with a decision, I mean, that still is a,
That's
that
that
still
next
is a
step in that
conversation.
process, and it's for the conversation, because in that same, I think in those same conversations, you then share the
Mhm.
fact finding that happened in that conversation, here's what we found out, here's
Yeah.
where we're at, this is what we're looking at,
Mhm.
you know, this is the direction this typically goes, and then at that point, parents give their feedback, question things, or, you know,
Yeah.
like, is it
It-
3
it's-
days, is it 5 days, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Shall
would say
hold an
it's-
informal hearing on the reasons for the suspension.
Mhm.
So
So-
you've already made the decision,
Decision in your form.
and you're
Yeah.
just telling people the whys.
So that analogy would make sense, like you calling the parent saying, hey, I had a conversation with so-and-so and we've decided, you know, this is the action we're taking, they're gonna be suspended. And then me coming and saying, well, hey, blah, 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 and me talking it through with you and challenging it then, that makes sense, but it doesn't make sense for the informal hearing to be my questioning of that student at that time, because the decision hasn't been made. So that's what, I was just trying to connect the dots.
Yeah, and I guess I do wanna make sure that maybe there's a need to link to other procedures and policies too, because I know it's not uncommon at all. Again, I call and suspend a student, there's notification made, there are no questions or concerns at that time, but the next morning they have questions and concerns.
Mhm.
And every administrator that I know of is saying, yeah, come on in, let's talk about this, let's review this, I'll share everything I can with you.
And that would be the informal hearing.
Well,
No,
I
that's
mean-
already
I mean,
taken place.
Again, according to the
Something we should
law,
be-
Right, and even-
that informal hearing is, again, it's that initial conversation.
Okay.
And by
I think it's
definition,
just
in
good
Idaho
practice.
law, it says it's, the informal hearing is part of the rudimentary due process.
Okay,
So that
what is-
rudimentary piece of things does say you're in that raw part of,
What rule, what law are you on? What,
oh,
it should be 33.
33205.
Denial of school.
It's really that hearing language makes,
Is,
just,
That's-
it lends itself to
Mhm.
a more formal setting,
Computer
where
like it.
it's not.
Well, and I'm glad that, that Shannon, you found that, and it used the word rudimentary, because
Well,
I
that's
think
just
that's
kind of
what
the
we're
description
getting.
that goes with this.
Mhm.
It wasn't
Yeah.
necessarily the word in the, but as I was looking at what's the definition of informal hearing in school law in Idaho, it talks about it being rudimentary.
okay, so the language in the statute is prior to suspending any student, meaning they have not been suspended yet. The superintendent or principal shall grant an informal hearing on the reasons for the suspension and the opportunity to challenge those reasons. So
Right, so,
prior to suspending. So the
Right.
decision has not been made. It's
maybe
this-
the recommendation has been made, and that's when they would, because at some point you still have to come up to a decision that says, our decision is to suspend and the parent.
The only thing I can kind of just blend this with, where I'm struggling,
Sure.
is when the board has to have a student hearing. What's presented to us is all the evidences
Mhm.
and a recommendation. We weigh the evidences, we consider the recommendations, and then we look at the law or apply whatever common sense we want to choose to apply within that situation, and then the decision is made. It's not a given, where what we do is we've done all this, we've done all the fact finding, the fact gathering, whatever, we've done our interviews, we have made the decision to suspend the kid, we call the parent, we say we're suspending Johnny, and then they have the right to dispute it. That's not a hearing. So that's where I'm really challenged by our language in this policy.
Well, I hear you totally, and I think the difference that we're coming back to is where the parent is in this. Because I read that language, and you're right, I mean, that's exactly what it says, it's prior to,
Suspending.
sorry, I keep losing my place on that.
It's right
Thank
here.
you.
Prior.
Thank you.
It's a lot of
Shall
words.
grant
It
an
is.
informal hearing, and again, I mean, maybe we don't like it, but I think that the spirit of that is the informal hearing, and this is with the student.
Right.
It is the student has an opportunity to share their side of the story and contest, hey, Johnny's not telling the truth, I wasn't the one who stuck the gum on the chair.
Mhm.
I think the difference is who are we including in the informal hearing?
I would caution you there, because there are several of the board members that would say that parent needs to be in that seat with their child.
Well, and like I said,
For
whether-
an informal hearing, not necessarily the fact gathering process.
whether we agree or disagree, I think that is the spirit of the law, and
And
so
that is the definition of the informal hearing, and it fits with those pieces.
Yeah.
Whether we like the wording or not is the question at hand.
Where's your definition of the informal hearing? Is it in?
Just, I'm gonna go back to it, cause I
Oh,
was.
I wonder if it is in there, sometimes they put definitions.
Yeah, they do.
Actually, can't type.
It would still be in 205 though, wouldn't it?
No, usually they'll have it, well, it could be, but
Okay.
often there's a definition chapter
Oh, okay.
of what they're intending for specific words to mean. Oh. I liked how it was all highlighted in yellow.
I think and I can't say,
And see, we're not even notified on temporary suspensions unless they reach the point of the board. That's interesting.
I don't think I would have an issue if a kid was suspended without having the conversation with the parent first.
Mm-hmm.
Cause I don't think that that's realistic, I mean, it would be nice, but I don't think, there's gonna be a lot of parents who are working, can't answer their phone, parents who just don't care,
True.
like all of those things. But I think the language is, to me, it is contradicting. The law says prior to, and the way that this is reading and being explained is, it's already taken place.
yeah.
So I don't think for me it's where the parent falls in here, I think it's where, I guess, the suspension is happening, cause that's, prior to the suspension, there's an informal hearing.
The suspension can actually happen until the parents know of it.
And it's not just temporary, it's.
You can't
Yeah,
just
they're still
send
there.
a child
Yeah,
home
they're still there
at
until
whatever
the parent
age.
knows. Yeah. So,
That just can't happen.
in-
And it's not gonna happen that same day unless things move really quickly, but.
And I don't know why we call it temporary suspension.
'Cause
It's
it
a
did come
sus-
back.
It's a suspension though. And the law doesn't say temporary suspension, it says suspension. Prior to suspending.
Is it an expulsion, Rob, or
Expulsion is
Expulsion is different than suspension.
Right.
Suspension
I do-
is limited.
I do
Here it
think,
does
like,
say temporarily.
Yeah, in the
referring
line
to
above, it
temporary
does
suspension.
refer to temporary suspension quite a bit.
But a suspension is not the same thing as an expulsion.
Right. But yeah, okay.
Okay.
So the temporary suspension has timeframes on it, should
Mhm.
not.
It can't exceed a certain.
Temporary is
days.
up to 5 days, that's the only thing a
It
principal
can't
can
exceed
do.
actually 20 days.
Extendable by 15,
Yeah.
Yep.
Suspension is more likely.
Yeah, a suspension is considered longer than 15 days, but less than 20, after which it becomes an expulsion. So it's really just a semantics piece of things when we're looking at.
At the law, yeah. Yep.
Maybe within our language, we can put
Temporary, extended, prolonged, and expulsion are the key terms or differences in identity.
less than 15 days, just so that if you're using that temporary suspension versus suspension language,
Yeah.
it's more obvious
Yeah.
not to exceed 15 days.
Then I think that information should be there. I don't know if it, okay, it is down here. Okay, perfect. All right, so, not in agreement with, okay, that paragraph up here, so I'm going to just, okay. So due process procedures are as follows. Student interviews take place where all students involved will have an adequate chance to tell their side of adequate. What does that mean?
Take it to opportunity.
Yeah.
Hey, Bob.
And again, I really
Yeah.
think, hey, Bob.
Hold on.
Bob?
I really think that that's, again, you know, I don't wanna argue the point at all, but I think in the interpretation of the law that we have been working with, that adequate chance to tell their side of the story, again, is the informal hearing. That's the student's opportunity to tell their side of the story, to challenge
Okay,
other perspectives.
But
and-
my question is, what are we meaning by adequate? Do we even need that word? Because
Oh, maybe-
all
maybe
students
not.
involved
Just take
will
out
have
and say
the
an opportunity
chance.
or chance or
Yeah,
whatever.
an opportunity or chance. I
Yeah.
like the word opportunity better than chance, but,
Chance sounds like you're tossing a coin. Just 'cause-
I think opportunity
I
sounds
know.
great.
Just
Yeah.
saying.
looking nice and tan there, Bob.
Yeah, no kidding, welcome home.
It's nice to be home. It's always good to come home.
Oh, good, even when it's
Absolutely.
pouring down rain.
When you brought the warm weather with you and it's now raining instead of snowing.
Well, I brought the warmth, but not the sunshine.
I would have taken the sunshine without the warmth. Just saying.
Next time.
Can you trade that out?
Get it straightened out.
Yeah.
Decisions made about discipline will take into consideration the available evidence and not be based on arbitrary judgment.
And that was taken right out of IDAPA. So we can wordsmith that however we want, but that's, I mean, that's just what I pulled from the administrative rule about not
Like a
using
decision.
arbitrary judgment, yeah.
You
And
get 3
again-
days, you get 5 days, you get to go home.
Yeah, and
Much
I
less.
think that's really, again, this is all just in my interpretation. The spirit of the law is to avoid arbitrary judgment. Like, that's
Right.
where all of this language about an informal hearing comes in, is because what they don't want to happen is an administrator says, oh, a vape detector went off, I just saw this kid coming out of the bathroom, you're suspended for this
Right,
week.
absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, so students and their guardians, will be notified of the consequences. In the case of an out-of-school suspension, the guardians will be notified by by the assigning administrator, and will also be provided with 3330 F3 as formal notice of suspension. Okay. This notice of temporary suspension is actually the formal notice of suspension?
Yes.
Okay, so we need to change one or the other, cause I think if we're going to keep the language of formal notice of suspension, that's what we should retitle this to, formal notice of suspension, or formal notice of temporary suspension.
Okay.
I mean, I'm just
Yeah.
saying that way it's mirroring.
Yeah, no, I'm with you completely. I think my intent in using the word formal, and this does not matter to me, we can change that if we need to. My intent was just to acknowledge that there's a difference, like you're still going to be called by the administrator for that.
We're not just sending you a piece of
We're not
paper.
just gonna send you a piece of paper, right? Like you're still gonna get a phone call, and you will also be provided with 3330 F3. So we can change that however you want to.
Oh, cause it says as, so,
Yep.
yeah, that makes sense.
Will also be provided with 3330 F3, the notice of temporary suspension.
Perfect.
Alright, in the case that a threat assessment, in the case a threat assessment is required, the following steps will be taken. Upon hearing information regarding any threat, the building principal may take any necessary steps to ensure student safety based on the information they have. To ensure students, okay, based on the information they have. Oh, it's you.
I did.
I'm like,
I'm telling,
oh,
turning
your
around backwards
face
and
is there.
opening it.
Just- yeah.
I gotcha.
I like it.
Hi, think smarter, not harder.
Right,
Sorry.
okay,
Your-
no,
your thought.
I'm just, I just am wondering if this is becoming more of a procedural policy than a policy in and of itself. So upon hearing information regarding any threat, the building principal may take any necessary steps to ensure student safety based on the information they have. This includes out-of-school suspension for any student accused of making a threat. Should we, okay. In the case a student is suspended prior to an informal hearing, which that's not supposed to happen, the informal hearing should take place as soon as is safely possible, even if it is completed via alternative means if the student cannot be at school. That is a very wordy sentence.
I did my best on it. Tell you what.
All right, at this time, the school level team should notify the district office of the situation and continue to update the district office as needed. Again, that seems more procedural steps.
I agree with you completely on that, actually. I really
Okay.
do. And
Okay.
I think this is part of where I just want to acknowledge that the lines got crossed a little bit here on, right. So I agree that this is definitely like our in-house procedures.
Right,
Yes.
right.
But under the impression that I had that we needed to change this to separate out some threat assessment stuff versus our due process, which, and again, I stand by that's not a bad idea to do that.
Right.
It maybe is more detail about threat assessments than what is necessary in here.
Well, I do think, see, the advantage of acknowledging that there's processes for threats at least lets parents become aware of the fact that if there's a threat, that further action's gonna be taken.
Oh,
But-
well, and in my defense, I think it's all there. I really do. I think that we just have to read through the next couple of points, if that makes sense.
Okay. But again, putting the procedural processes in the policy is something that we've sort of walked out of our policies because procedural steps can change all the time. But the policy is just supposed to explain, this is the rule,
Mhm.
and that's where we go from there. All right, so, the school level administrative team shall take a written statement from the student, any witnesses, and all other parties involved. After the written statements are collected, the principal shall determine if a threat assessment investigation is needed. If a threat assessment investigation is needed, then parents will be notified of the outcome of the investigation up to that point. If a threat assessment investigation is needed, parents shall be contacted to inform them of, 1, the threat assessment investigation involving their students, and 2, the student's temporary suspension. If a safe to return plan cannot be completed by the school level team, the student will be referred to the district level team for problem solving. In the event that an expulsion is possible, the superintendent will refer the student to the board for a formal hearing.
And I might need to, I apologize, I cut you off earlier, Michelle, and that was rude of me. I think I might need some clarification on what you mean in terms of having language in there about threat assessments, but not including too much procedure. I don't think I'm understanding.
Okay, I think we have to go back to the top.
You got it.
All right, so disciplinary action may be taken against any student guilty of disobedience or misconduct, including but not limited to. We list them all as best as we can think of. These grounds for temporary action apply, or for disciplinary action apply whenever the student's conduct is reasonably related to school or school activities, including but not limited to, and we try and label them all. Powers and duties of a teacher. A teacher shall have the power to adopt any reasonable rule or regulation to control and maintain discipline in and otherwise govern the classroom, not inconsistent with any statute or rule or regulation of the Board of Trustees. Disciplinary measures are designed to correct and address the student's misbehavior and include, but are not limited to, the following: expulsion, temporary suspension, detention, cleanup duty, loss of student privileges, loss of bus privileges, yada, yada, yada. In the event a student is removed from the classroom, A, for an extended period of time or for the duration of the class period, or if administration is involved, if administration is involved regarding the disciplinary measure, then the child's parents or guardians shall be contacted and made aware of the circumstances and situation. No person who is employed or engaged by the district may inflict or cause to be inflicted corporal punishment of a student. Corporal punishment does not include reasonable force as needed to maintain safety for other students, school personnel, or other persons, or for the purpose of self-defense. Temporary suspension. The superintendent or building principal may temporarily suspend any student or for disciplinary reasons, including student harassment, intimidation, bullying, or cyberbullying, or for other conduct disruptive of good order or of the instructional effectiveness of the school. Prior to temporarily suspending any student, the superintendent or principal shall hold an informal hearing on the reasons for the suspension. During an informal hearing, parents and students have the opportunity to challenge the reasons for a temporary suspension. Due process procedures are as follows. Student interviews will take place where all students involved have an opportunity to tell their side of the story. Decisions made about discipline will take into consideration the available evidence and not be based on arbitrary judgment. Students and their parents or guardians will be notified of the consequences. In the case of an out-of-school suspension, the guardians will be notified by the assigning administrator and will also be provided the notice of temporary suspension. Okay, so can an in-school suspension be a temporary suspension? And the reason why I'm asking is because here we call it out as an out-of-school suspension.
Mm-hmm.
I know we do in-school suspensions.
Yeah.
So how do we deviate the difference? How are we determining that we're only noticing parents of the temporary suspension when we're making the kiddo stay home, not in school. So are we not noticing parents of a temporary suspension if their kiddo has in-school suspension for 3 days and they have to sit in the office, or 2 days in the library? I mean, that's just, I've heard
When you
that.
say notice, do you mean the form or the phone call?
That's what I
'Cause
don't know what
right-
everyone's processes are,
Yeah,
and that's
'cause-
why.
Because I can clarify both of those on our end, but.
Yeah, right now, I would say we do not send the form. We do not send 3330 F3 for an in-school suspension.
What's the longest we do for in-school suspension?
Oh my goodness. I mean, I would say it's really typical to go past a day or two, or really atypical to go past a day or two.
Okay, so
Usually
it's
they're
a
very
short
Like,
term
3 days is pretty extensive.
I know of
like,
3 days, I don't know anything beyond a 3 day
Maybe in my
suspension.
4 years on this, we've done a 5-day once, and that was extreme, and it was with parent
Yeah.
collaboration.
Usually.
Like, it's,
Okay.
it's a 1 to 3 day, 99% of the time,
Yep.
if not, yeah.
Okay,
And parents are contacted.
and we're just telling parents this is what we're doing. We're not giving them a notice.
Not the form, no.
Okay. So do they have the same opportunity to challenge the reasons for an informal hearing and all that? Cause we're supposed to be
That's-
given that informal hearing and all that stuff.
That's a good question. I mean, I would say yes, that's our practice, but that's not something that we specifically delineate anywhere.
Okay. So it's not in our policy, but we're doing it.
Or it's not in the policy either, like, it's all part of the suspensions, and any suspension can
Correct,
be.
it is part of this, yeah,
I
it
mean,
is
it's
part
still
of what we
considered a
do, but,
suspension.
yeah.
And it's, anytime a parent, wanted to come in and, can I talk to you about this, we need to hear, we would schedule a meeting to do that. I don't know that that's gonna stop, just because it's an in-school versus an out.
Correct, yeah.
So then would it be just easy to take students and their parents or guardians will be notified of the consequences in the case of any suspension instead of an out-of-school suspension? In the case of any suspension, the guardians will be notified by the assigning administrator.
And then you'd have
In
to
the
put-
case of out-of-school suspension, they will be provided the form.
Yeah.
And we'll be
Yeah.
provided form,
That's
but
a
then
great
that's
suggestion.
out of
Just
school,
together.
yeah,
Mhm.
cause like I said, we do notify parents on any suspension.
Well, yeah, I would hope that we just.
If we're pulling them out of class, we're gonna let them know that's happening.
Yeah, okay, in the case of a school suspension, the guardians, parents or guardians will be notified by the assigning administrator, period. Then we could simply say,
School suspension.
this would be, 'cause it's there, policy 3330F, so then,
Would it
policy.
be form? Oh, I guess it's called policy, huh?
It is, cause it's under the policies, and we've always done that. I wish we could just call it the form, because that's what it is. But technically, it's not even a form, it's a notice,
I
but it's an
agree.
F3.
Yeah. I agree.
So, will be provided for out-of-school suspension. This, okay. Now, but now we run into the threat assessment issue, which I really feel this is staff procedure.
I don't disagree with that at all.
So let's say we don't put anything in there about a threat assessment. Let's just roll with that.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
No, not right at this moment. Hold your thought. Because I was going through something. Go ahead. What's your question?
Which one of you is gonna forget your train of thought?
It
Yeah,
will be
see-
me. I
see if
have
I can remember.
way too much right now.
So if we don't include it, I guess I wanna note and I wanna clarify if this is okay, in what you were talking about earlier, that we're also excluding all of the previous language.
We're not
Because-
there yet. My point was, I wanted to see if we left it all out with the additional language that's on here, what picture does that present in this policy? Meaning, I do think we need to let parents know there may be a threat assessment done
Right.
depending on the actions of what's occurred. But
Right.
we can't delineate what will cause a threat assessment because it's all weighed on the evidences that are collected.
Right.
And so you can't say, if you're going through a backpack and there's, a long knife blade and some scary notes, well, that's gonna prompt a threat assessment. But if you're going through a backpack and it's a pocket knife and it's a oopsie because, I was whittling wood before I came to school, that's not gonna prompt a threat assessment, especially if there's no notes and,
Yeah.
this is a kid whittles wood. I mean,
Agreed.
there's common sense that plays into that.
Mhm.
You can't just throw that out there and say, we may not. But I
Yeah.
think you do need to let parents know
In
that.
the case of a threat
in-
assessment,
Right.
the processes might,
Or there are additional processes and that may
Well
be
said.
the
Yeah.
end of the sentence.
yeah.
But you can't ignore letting them know that a threat assessment may occur. And that's why on the form, I made the changes that aligned with what we had going on here,
Mhm.
because then it was just to check the box for the administrator to say it's, no threat assessment. So it clears up everything. But we've gone to, so we're gonna go back to this. Okay, so for our due process, we end here. We're not gonna do this part for a sec. So a temporary suspension shall not exceed 5 days. The superintendent may extend the temporary suspension an additional 10 school days. The board may extend the temporary suspension for 5 more additional school days upon a finding that immediate return to school attendance by the temporarily suspended student would be detrimental to other students' health, safety, or welfare. Any student who has been temporarily suspended may be readmitted to the school pursuant to the terms of a behavioral support plan. The Board of Trustees shall, because what you used to say contract, and I lined out everything that said contract.
I'm not aware of any changes that we've made here.
Okay. Because that's one thing I don't like the word contract on anything that we're having little people sign. The Board of Trustees shall be notified of any temporary suspensions, the reasons therefore, and the response, if any. Students engaging in.
Whoa.
Yes, sir?
The temporary suspension including in school?
We're not notified on any of the suspensions unless they reach a hearing.
Yeah.
So that's why, when I read that, I'm like, we're not being noticed of that. We don't have, there's no report given to us saying we've had 5 kiddos this month or quarter. I wouldn't think it would, but
I don't know that we need that.
I don't know that we need that either. The only thing that's ever come to us has been when the suspension's elevated up to a formal hearing. So, let's do this. Let's just highlight this. And then the trustees can say whether or not they, because it is on a list. I know we were supposed to receive it, but we don't. And why, I don't know what the intention was, other than, I think, in all fairness, I think the reason it was put on there, Bob, was because of the amount of behavioral issues we have. And if we can't correlate the behavioral issues with the suspensions, how can we resolve either one if we don't know what's going on? So I think that was the intention behind it, but I know we're not receiving that information. So I'll just highlight it and the board can decide what it wants to do with it. If they want it struck, then we strike it out. Students engaging in harassment, intimidation, bullying, and or cyberbullying shall be subject to policy 3295 and 3295P. The district reserves the right to appropriately address the conduct at issue and move directly to suspension or expulsion proceedings. A student who uses, possesses, controls, or transfers a firearm of any object that can reasonably be considered to be or look like a firearm while on school property or in those portions of any building, stadium, or other structure on school grounds at an activity sponsored by or through a school in this state, while riding school provided transportation, or while attending or participating in any school sponsored activity, program, or event, regardless of location, may be expelled for a period of not less than 1 year. The board may modify the expulsion period on a case-by-case basis as determined by the outcome of an expulsion hearing. The building administrator shall notify the appropriate law enforcement agency of any student who brings a firearm to school. If a student violating this policy is identified as disabled, either under IDEA or Section 504, a determination must be made whether the student's conduct is related to the disability. If the violation of the policy is due to a disability recognized by the IDEA or Section 504, lawful procedures for changes in placement must be followed. Any student subject to an expulsion shall be entitled to a formal hearing before the Board of Trustees in accordance with Idaho Code and Board Policy. Exceptions to gun-free schools. A firearm that is lawfully stored inside a locked vehicle on school property is an exception for any adult over 18 years of age and not enrolled in a public or private elementary or secondary school who has lawful possession of a firearm or other deadly or dangerous weapon secured and locked in his or her vehicle in an unobtrusive and non-threatening manner. Or there's no and there. Possession of firearms and dangerous weapons in federal facilities shall not apply to lawful carrying of firearms or other dangerous weapons in a federal facility incident to hunting or other lawful purposes is an exception pursuant to 18 U.S.C. federal law. Possession of a weapon on school property. Now, okay. We keep going. Okay. In my opinion, so it would flow. All right. Because see, threat assessments to me are usually implemented due to harassment or guns. I mean, weapons. That's where they fall in. So, I don't know.
So are you proposing like making a section there for threat assessments?
I don't think we need a detailed step-by-step processes for threat assessments, but I do think we need to let people know that a threat assessment may occur.
Agreed.
If, students' actions arise to.
It just wasn't like using, how could you word that a threat could result in the student being out of school? Well, the
Yeah.
investigation, it's well worded.
Yeah,
What's it say?
this actually is really well worded, and I appreciate it that it addresses the fact that we have the right to suspend a student before an informal hearing, because I noticed that's something that contradicts in there. This says, if a student's behavior or expressed intent suggests an immediate threat to school safety or a substantial disruption of the educational environment, the student may be temporarily removed from school pending the completion of a formal student threat assessment by the designated threat assessment team. This temporary removal is a safety measure, not a disciplinary action, and will be implemented only when the student's presence poses an imminent risk in accordance with district procedures.
I like that. Where's
I just
what
did
is
a
Google
descriptive,
search?
what I wanted on a Google search of
Yeah.
what would a policy look like that includes
Okay.
temporarily removing a student because of a threat while the investigation, and that's what brought it up for me. I was like, ooh, I don't think I could have done that myself
I
without seeing.
really appreciate that.
That's a good.
It was well
Yeah,
done,
that
so I was
is
like,
good.
I'm gonna just say, let's
So
just.
you could add that as a-
Instead of, so that you know that there could be additional,
So
and
if
then
we,
to look into the threat assessment piece of things.
Mhm.
But,
Yeah.
Yep.
so if we strike all that, and then
I love it.
we come up here. Oh, can you see the document?
I was just
I
gonna
can
say-
just like a copy and paste it. Do
Can
want
you
me to
copy and paste it? That would be easier
email
than
to you?
me scribing it.
Or into, just straight, I don't know if I can go into the document.
See if you
We'll
can.
see. I don't know if I
You
have
could
editing
share it
rights.
with her really quick.
What, I gotta find where we're at.
Says it-
Yeah.
So
Oh, it is
up at
shared.
the top, where it says add people, if you type in Shannon,
There you
Cause I
are.
have no, yeah, I have to request editing
There
access.
we go.
perfect.
Just hit my refresh, give me 2 seconds.
Oh my gosh, how dare you?
So we want this to go right where your
Where my
cursor's at,
cursor
right?
is, yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
You're
This
good.
new computer is not my favorite thing. Okay, I put it in there. It's down below. Like in the
There
next
it is.
page.
Okay,
Here, it's not in any of the right formatting, but it's there, you don't have to.
that's fine. I'm gonna make it red just so that we know.
Students' behavior or expressed intent.
Like we can change it however, but there's the starts. It's great in the background and I don't know why. Oh, that's how it came out of the thing.
So I have one question about this.
What?
It is our practice to sometimes, as a safety measure, remove a student from school before there's even a threat assessment completed. And let me give you an example. If late at night a social media post is made, there's no hearing or
Right.
threat assessment, but you better believe that
But
there's
it says
reason.
pending the completion of, so I think that,
Mhm.
because it says pending, like, we notify parents, we will begin the threat assessment first
Oh,
thing in the morning.
You're totally
Your
right.
kid doesn't get to come to school tomorrow. So I think the pending
Mhm.
covers
Yeah.
this, right?
I
Yeah.
think you're exactly right.
Okay.
Good catch.
No, it just was, I had that same thought. I think this does cover any situation we've come across where
Yep.
even as we're just looking into this, keep them home. So
Yeah.
as we know more, we'll be in touch.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a matter of, please keep it home.
So
It's
do
a
we
matter
have
of
a
safety.
threat assessment
And
team?
That's what I was gonna
Yes.
ask.
We do? Okay,
Okay.
so. I've designated, I don't always capitalize,
If you want to change this versus rewriting the whole thing, that might be faster.
this temporary removal is a safety measure, not a disciplinary action, and will be implemented only when the student's presence poses an imminent risk in accordance with district procedures. Oopsies. Your cursor's at the bottom.
Sorry, I'll get out. I'm
You're
like,
fine,
"I'll
you're
get
fine,
over
you're
there."
fine. Okay, so that then, okay, so here's their due process, again, that's a little contradictory, but there's the due process, and then here's where we're saying a threat assessment could occur,
Mm-hmm.
okay? so
May
then we
result in them being sent home.
take all of that out,
Yep.
and then we should, so that is all, okay, so that's temporary suspension, due process procedures. This is more on the, okay, so I think this, maybe. Could go here. Threat assessment, and then we just talk, we have this little paragraph.
Perfect.
So we're acknowledging it happens and it can occur, but we're
Yep.
not necessarily, yeah, okay, that makes me feel better. So then, possession, where were we, law enforcement, non-discrimination, oh wait, okay, so this section of this policy does not apply to law enforcement, any adult over 18 and not enrolled, who has lawful possession of a firearm or other deadly, dangerous or secured and locked in his or her vehicle, and, okay, person who lawfully possesses a firearm or other deadly, dangerous weapon in a private vehicle while delivering minor children to school. Person or persons protecting him or herself and her family by reasonable means necessary, or when coming to the aid of other whom he or she reasonably believes to be in imminent danger, or of or the victim of aggravated assault, robbery, rape, murder, or other heinous crime, or a person or an employee of the school district who is authorized to carry a firearm with permission from the Board of Trustees. The district will ensure student discipline is enforced in a non-discriminatory manner. This policy shall be provided in writing at the beginning of each school year to the school personnel, parents, and students in the district, and the board reviews this policy annually. How is this being provided to everybody? Is it in the student handbook? Is that the only way we're providing it?
It is in the student handbook. It's referenced whenever we contact parents about suspensions, including in the form, but primarily, it is.
Well, I'm asking about how it's provided at the beginning of the school year, because that's what our policy says.
It would be handbook.
Just in the
Primarily.
handbook.
It's not a box they check on the
Okay.
registration.
There
Either
is-
Skyward.
I think they check a box that says that they read the student handbook.
Okay, cause I know there's some of them that didn't.
There are some
few
policies that we
that we
specifically
specifically
said
say
they have to
this-
check off on, and this should be one of them.
This, if it's
This
not,
has
it
to
could
be one of them, I
Okay.
think.
I know there's a few there, I just don't know which ones they are. There's.
Right,
That would be
okay,
a Chad question.
Yep.
alright, so,
Is the provided in writing language tricky? I mean, is that implying that you're giving them a piece of paper, handing them to it, or is it just that it's
I think
written
it's
online?
written and we aren't just telling them.
Right,
It's not just a
okay.
verbal conversation that they physically can read it, whether it's online or, they could print the copies if they wanted, but.
That is a good question though, Mary, because that,
And it's-
the
I mean,
impression that
it-
it gives is that it's provided to you when you.
Yeah, it's, here you go,
Mhm.
versus read this information and
Mhm.
say, check, I read it,
Yep.
when they register their kids. That's not really saying the same thing.
Sure.
So just say provided at the beginning of
It's
each
part
school
of
year?
the beginning year, it's part of registration.
Unless you don't wanna put that, cause it may change how we provide it in the future, like.
Yeah.
Yeah, cause then you can change
So just say
Mhm.
the way it's provided
It's
and you don't have to
provided.
change the policy.
Mhm.
however, it should be provided to any student that is enrolling in the district, regardless if it's at the first
Right, that's
or
what I'm
the
saying, I
start
think
or
we
at the
wanna tie
middle
our
of the
hands
year.
with specifics, it could just be.
Right, so, shall be provided at the beginning of the school year, how about we say,
Or
or
upon enrollment.
As part of the enrollment process. But there again, you're tying your hands to that.
words in this sentence. This policy shall be provided at the beginning of each school year or upon enrollment and to school personnel, parents, and students in the district. That's kind of redundant. How might we do this?
So then maybe instead of at the beginning of each school year, you could just put upon enrollment there.
And that covers
Because
what-
that
During
covers the
enrollment.
beginning, middle, and.
Right,
closes.
regardless of when the
Yeah.
student and the parent come to the district. So the policy shall be provided at the beginning of each school year to school personnel and to the parents and students in the district during enrollment. Okay. All right. So hopefully that seems well enough to go to the board. Thank you for all your hard work on the green language.
It's
Sorry we
great
struck it all out.
procedural language for us to use elsewhere.
You can
Mhm.
Yeah, don't-
take
don't
it and
lose
move
it.
it.
Yeah.
There we go.
We're just
That is
moving it
okay.
somewhere
That'll
else.
be another meeting.
That is
Is that
So-
supposed to
okay.
go to the board or to the, for, feedback?
Has it not gone out for feedback? Cause it's supposed to go out for feedback before it comes to the board.
No, cause last time you told me just to send it to the board.
Well, no, it went to Rusty.
Uh-huh, and then you said Rusty then to the board.
Okay.
So I
Well,
can send it out for feedback.
If it's
but-
never gone out for feedback, then it should.
Mhm.
So then we have the written statement. Okay, did you take any action, including but not limited to photographs, videos, or recordings in any way in response to the incident? Or any other incidents?
Was that the committee's change?
Yes.
Okay.
Because did you take any action in response to the incident? We were trying to figure out what do we mean by that? Well, the reality is nowadays, kiddos take pictures, they record things, they make videos, they do all sorts of things. So, that's why it's including but not limited to. We wanna call it out to their attention that, because a kid may not think, did you take any action in response to the incident means, did I take pictures or did I record it? Because they may think, well, did I do anything in the incident, like hit somebody?
Yeah.
So we wanted to make sure that if students are photographing, videoing or recording, then they need to bring that forward to administration.
Mhm. Makes sense.
So yes, that was the, okay, there we go. So F2, behavioral support plan. Yeah, somebody went through and took that out because it was a contract.
Is that and that is a good thing though? We don't want contract?
Correct,
Okay,
correct.
sounds good.
Just
Okay.
usually the changes don't get, removed until they're approved by the board, that's
Okay,
all.
okay.
Cause maybe
And I'm not
everybody else
aware
would
of-
like it to say contract, which.
Right, and I'm not aware of where that change came from, but if, I just wanna clarify that.
That
that's not a
is,
problem.
that language, the contract term we've been trying to weed it out for years.
Okay,
And create what it really is, which is a plan.
sure.
And have the student and the parent sign off on the plan, not having a student sign off on a contract. So it is semantics with words, but
Gotcha.
plan is much safer than contract. Mr. Taylor, the superintendent of the Lakeland Joint School District, ordered this behavioral support plan. This behavioral support plan is in effect for 1 calendar year from today's date. So, okay, so he added, okay, the support plan is consistent with the board policy and has been reviewed by school administration. In order to maintain my enrollment at wherever I go, I understand that I'm required to meet the following conditions. I will continue my enrollment after I have completed any suspension days. I understand that I am required to be in full-time attendance during school Monday through Friday unless released by parent or guardian. I will earn passing grades in all my classes. I understand that the school campus will be closed to me for the duration of this support plan. Yep, see there, I took out contract. Unless permission is granted by the administration, I will be subject to random searches of my person or property while at school based on reasonable suspicion. The following items are required by administration as conditions to return to school and any necessary restrictions during the school day. For example, so the following will be determined upon an informal hearing as a condition to return to school. Okay. Education component, class research essay, school or community service hours. I will not be allowed to participate in any extracurricular activities, contests, events for 40 school days pending reduction activities provided by school administration. Oh, yeah, okay. So the counseling referral, we did not know if that meant like going and finding a counselor or if it's we're referring to the school counselor, because
Yeah.
the school counselor doesn't cost the school district
I think it's definitely safer.
any
for
dollars.
School counselor. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And can I, like, with question, and maybe this will be a rusty question, when we worked with these in the past, it kind of is a template, and then we add and or take away from it based on what the situation was.
They say it.
Like this
That's
is.
listing it like that's for every
Yeah, like there may
situation,
be
and
situations
may not be.
where,
That-
cause we've had that conversation with a situation where
Well, see-
outside counseling was probably, and what we didn't say referral, we just said, when we changed it to recommendation, cause we don't want it to be tied where we're requiring that for them to return, but we want it to be on record that we did recommend that parents seek outside counseling.
Well, and I don't
But it's not
know-
always appropriate.
No, I hear you. But if it's my understanding, and Bob can correct me if I'm wrong, but if we're telling kids they have to go to a counselor outside of school,
Right,
we
Yeah.
pay for it.
And I think it depends on exactly how we go about it.
Right.
Like if we say, hey, we're
Recommend.
recommending this could be a productive next step for you if you're looking for solutions. That's a different thing than saying you have to go to a
Correct.
counselor,
Right.
right?
Correct.
And so when we, like, the wording on there was different, but I know that we created this behavior support plan in the past, and we've taken this piece of things
Mhm.
and maybe included that they're not allowed to ride a bus,
Yeah.
because the incident may have involved another student that is on the same bus, or,
And-
you know, so pieces of this build
Well,
And
based on the
that's-
situation.
That's the spirit of the green language that I added there. I apologize, I forgot I did add that statement in here. To allow for that flexibility. Like, we want this plan to be as individualized as an IEP, right? Like, it should not really be standardized for any of these situations, because they're all going to be very, very different. To have a template is phenomenal, because they should all follow the same protocol.
Okay, but I don't understand why we would classify a template that's to be used for administrative benefit as a policy.
I agree.
Your thought, Bob?
Procedure, it's a procedure.
That's, yeah.
It's a form.
It's a,
But
it's a
this is the-
form, but I
this is
don't.
the form, right?
It's Form 2, but it's a behavioral support plan that's drafted by administration based on whatever it is that is the need of the student in that
Like,
building.
We could include this in our admin handbook, and we would have access to it. It's nice for us to have a building block to stem from.
Well,
But
yeah.
whether it needs to be in policy or not, that's,
I agree with you completely, Michelle, that it's procedural and it's much easier for us to work with if we just have an administrative template to use.
Well, and I do believe that, I know in the past, because all these, and I'm talking like 5, 6 years ago, all the behavioral contracts that were floating around, the board did ask, what are we having people sign?
Yeah.
And some of the stuff was not appropriate. But I don't think it needs to be on the website, given that it is a procedural, I mean, it's for you people. It's not for parents to like, not that we're hiding the ball from them, because they're gonna see the behavioral support plan if their child's
Mhm.
actions arise to having one.
Yeah.
right, I think
but I
when you
don't-
scroll down, I think they have to sign it.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
it's, they're not
Correct,
gonna,
the
not, I mean-
student, the parent, and the principal,
Yeah.
and 9 times out of 10, the only thing signature we've ever seen is the principal's, just because of whatever's occurred. But, I don't know why this would be on the website. I do think it should be in the administrative handbook.
I agree.
All right.
And previous to 2-3 years ago, it was just in the administrative handbook. And so I'm not sure how we got to this point and I don't mean to pick on that either, I just, that
No,
we were
I-
operating off of the fact that this is a pretty recent addition
Okay.
to policy.
In all fairness, I think a lot of how we got to some places was based on knee-jerk reactions
Okay.
of unclear communication and just misguided perceptions. Because, I mean, this is not a form that should go on the website. This is something for all administration to use. And yes, you should have a template or a bank of,
Yeah.
you know, pick and choose so it populates your form and it's all neat and clean and
Exactly.
tidy.
Yes.
But again, 6+ years ago, the board was asking questions about, you know, where is this? What is this? What does it even look like? And nothing could be produced, and then it was produced, and then there was a lot of language that was cautious, that should not have been on there. So I think as a knee-jerk reaction, it became form,
Okay.
which I don't necessarily know that it has to be a form. But I do believe here, because it's on here. So because in ISBA's policy, there is this, so this transferred over there, so then we populated there, and that was part of the struggle with ISBA, because not everything ISBA has is something that we need to necessarily force out on our people, because it's not really what we follow. The notice of temporary suspension,
Does that need to go to the board to have the board agree to pull it, or do we just pull it?
well, I believe it would be a discussion amongst the board, yes. The notice of temporary suspension, I guess, would then also fall in that same parameters, that it's procedural.
Administrative.
Exactly. And so, I guess if the administration wants to take out all of whatever it wants to take out, or throw in whatever it wants to throw in, then that's administration's call.
If the board wants
If
to.
the board approves.
Eliminate
Correct.
F2 and F3.
Correct. But just, I mean, when it was brought to the committee the first time, just striking this out, saying, nope, we're not gonna do that, when the policy is saying, this is what we're doing, that's what prompted the whole, well, let's just identify what due process and give the administrators a checkbox so that the form's pretty simple to complete,
Sure.
you know. Now, I don't know if we want, I mean, we only have 15 minutes left, but, so you're hereby notified pursuant to the procedures adopted by the Board of Trustees. An informal hearing was held pertaining to the temporary suspension of the above named student enrolled in the Lakeland Joint School District. You have a right to a formal hearing before the board if you believe your child has been wrongfully suspended. We have a uniform grievance policy, which parents may use if they have a grievance regarding their child's suspension. This process ensures that concerns move through the required chain of command before the matter reaches the board. If we choose not to use for these types of grievances, we will need to develop formal procedures for parents should we move forward with this new approach. So is this just commentary?
I think it, yes.
Okay.
It reads like that.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm like,
I don't.
Why are we saying
Highlighted
that?
is commentary, unhighlighted is the actual suggestion.
oh, okay. There are several important questions that would need to be addressed. Yeah, no.
Did we add
Is-
the timeframes last time, did we?
It's already in there.
It
It's all
is in
part of
there.
policy,
Well,
or
it's-
part of,
Yeah.
it's all part of.
Yeah. I think the reality is, if you're gonna my understanding is that if you're gonna suspend a kid and the parent's upset and they don't want their kid suspended, they have the right to say, I want a formal hearing and go to the board. It's beyond a grievance process, because it's not a grievance process. We're denying their student access to education. when they're
Appeal
suspended.
process. It's an appeal process,
Mm.
Yes.
not a grievance process.
Right, so, no, I mean, they might have a grievance against the principal because they don't like, I don't know, what color shirt they're wearing, and that's a whole different thing.
Sure.
But when we're denying their kid, their student, their child, an education, they have a right to just come straight to the board and say, this is not right. And then it would be the formal process, which could then level up to something more, or not,
Sure.
who knows? But I don't think we need to penalize parents because they don't want their student expelled or suspended for up to 5, 10, 15 days. Which, and I don't think parents know this, but if their student's going to be on that extended suspension, they're going to be coming before the board because it's leading to an expulsion. So I guess, I don't know how many parents would be wanting a formal hearing if their student was expelled for 3 days, but I don't know.
Yeah. I'm with you.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this could be struck. If you believe your child has been wrongfully disciplined.
I think that's all the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
I recommend removing all checkboxes. They create confusion for the principal and parents. I would really hope they don't create confusion for the principals. I recommend taking out any boxes to check. Okay, well. So,
So part of that I own, because some of that language did come from me about taking
Mhm.
out the check boxes. I kind of stand by that. I think that, yes, principals know the procedure, but anytime we give a parent a spectrum like that of low, mid, high threat assessment needed, even if no is one of the options, I don't know, I just think we use that in such a limited way.
Mhm.
Like so few suspensions result in a threat assessment like that,
Mhm.
that it just, to me, it seems like an unnecessary complication for parents to navigate.
well, and again, I mean, I just coming and saying, we're getting rid of, I don't even know if I see the paragraph anymore, cause
It's the block,
this one,
yeah.
okay. Just saying, nope, we're not gonna put that on there without an understanding of the facts of what was in the policy. Again, it all went back to what was in the policy.
Mhm.
And so that's why this came to be.
Yep, yeah, I understand.
Because it was confusing.
Very confusing.
And I am not well versed at this stuff, but I just remember seeing it and we were like,
What?
the wheels were turning
Yeah.
and it was really, really confusing. So then when we added those, I'm like, that's so much more clear.
Yeah, my desire
Yeah.
was, instead of just removing it, why don't we clean up the language and the way it's presented? So that's what we did.
So the parents could follow it better.
Correct.
They had a better understanding.
So, but the reality is,
And I realize this, I'm sorry.
no, you're fine.
I was just gonna say, the green language kind of at the bottom of what you're highlighting right now
Mhm.
is what I wrote originally. And again, I don't know, we have a lot on here.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I originally wrote. In rare cases, additional time may be needed to further investigate an incident, such as completion of a threat assessment. In that case, or if it is determined that the return of the student would be detrimental, the superintendent may impose an additional 10-day suspension,
Okay,
etc.
right, but, so, this notice of temporary suspension,
Mhm.
let's go back to the policy.
Does the notice need all that information other than, yeah,
Well, no, I'm agreeing with, I'm just
it's
listening.
like,
In
this
agreement.
is your
Okay.
student, this is
So-
what happened, this is what's going to happen.
Right,
Okay.
Yes, that's
And
the
maybe-
spirit of the change that was being recommended originally.
Well, and I can, sorry, go ahead.
no, you're fine. This, because this, the way from experience, I guess would be the better way to say it, because reading the policy, I would never guess it.
Sure.
But my experience is the only time I've ever seen a notice of temporary suspension is when that student has to come before the board for an expulsion.
Mhm.
So, I don't know if that's right or wrong, but that's what we've been doing.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, in just a little bit more context there, for years, this was something that we were not really doing with any level of consistency at all.
I understand that.
And it was last spring, fairly close to the end of the school year, that it was brought to our attention that like, hey, we need to be doing this with any suspension. And then that's something that I've really focused on this year, is just reminding everybody, hey, remember we have this form, anytime you suspend a student, these are the notifications that are required, both
Okay.
to parents and to the district office. And so we're really working on really tracking this at this point, and
Which we
correlating
should be,
and
yes.
not only just tracking it, but pairing it with what sorts of behaviors are resulting in suspensions in various buildings and at different grade levels.
Mhm.
So that way we can evaluate that data.
Right, and we can solve, you can be a better problem solver if you have the information than if you
That's-
don't.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
because, yeah. Oh, okay, but, with, so, I don't know if you, I guess it goes back to the fact that I don't know if you need to have conversation on here, given that it's an administrative policy or a procedural
Yeah.
policy, so to speak, that shouldn't even be on the website. But I do think there has to be some, well, they're coming before us. I guess that's where I just struggle on what we're doing here with this. Because, or what we want to do with it, because the only time these have ever come before us. But what I hear you saying now is that supposedly this is happening for even those 2 and 3 day suspensions, correct? Okay,
Yes.
all right. So just forget about the past.
Yep, correct.
Water under the bridge, as I've often heard. Okay, so,
Yeah. Yep.
So the notice goes to the parents though.
Right, not necessarily to the school board.
right.
Although that's
Okay.
something that we could,
That's what I'm like, so
Well,
we're doing a better job of doing the form.
Correct.
But you're not gonna know we're doing the form because it only goes to the parent, just so we're.
No, I hear you, but that's where I think why that language got put in the policy was because we get so many, concerns about the behaviors that teachers are inundated with, but yet nothing to, I mean, we know it's going on, but there's nothing to support how we can help implement whatever policy needs to be implemented for the change.
it seems like the back end tracking that we're working on would be the better notification to the board to say,
Mhm.
hey,
Absolutely.
last month at a glance, here's what we generally saw.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. I would agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Because then, when administration is coming forward saying, hey, we need to do something, and how can we do it? You can present us with, evidence to say, look, this is where we're going this year, you know,
Exactly.
and how can we implement a change
Yeah.
to address it?
Yep.
Although I do believe that if there is a threat assessment that's being done, the parents need to be made aware of that. That's where I think
And
we
that
were-
is step one of our threat assessment, actual procedures, which we would never put in policy, but like that is step one, is
notifying the parents that we're doing.
notifying the parents, is
Okay.
the student safe, are other students safe,
Right.
is your school secure? Like, it's very bulleted out for administrators.
Okay. But see, the 10-day suspension and that extra 5 days has nothing to do with threat assessments. It has to do with getting the student for the expulsion hearing. I mean,
Well,
it's not
sometimes.
just specific to the threat
Correct.
assessment.
Correct, but in that same idea, I don't think it's also specific to just getting them to a hearing either.
So,
'Cause sometimes
why
we-
would the board offer up an additional 5 more days to go to the max of 20? I mean, I've not done that in 6 years, but.
Well, and I guess I'm just thinking of the
Go
paragraph.
ahead, what was that, I'm sorry, what was that? Bob?
Well, yeah, the only time that happens, I think, is if it's actually gonna go to expulsion.
Expulsion, correct.
The time is extended in order to
Correct.
notify everybody and get the timelines in place.
Correct, correct,
But otherwise, there's no reason why we would do that.
exactly.
Yeah, and I apologize, I think I'm lumping into it the fact that the superintendent can impose an additional 10 days, cause that does, we do use that for other things sometimes. If there
Mhm.
was a fight that is still unresolved, or a social media thing that's taking a long time to unravel,
Mhm.
we'll use that 10 days, and it's
Well,
not
and,
always the
and
right
that,
assessment.
I guess those 15 days, I guess, are within administrative's control.
Right.
The only time we flop in those extra 5 days is when we know we're headed for that expulsion hearing.
I'm with you.
Okay,
Yep.
so,
But is it better to leave it on there, so even though it's very rarely used, it's better to let them know it's a possibility than not?
well, I guess what I'm cautioned by is creating, the perspective that the only time this 10 and this 5 to 10 to now you got 5 more from the board is linked to a threat assessment, cause that's not the case.
Well, I don't think it
Doesn't have
says
to
that
be.
though. Yeah,
It's
it
really-
does say
So
such
further
as.
investigative,
Yeah,
okay.
Such as completion of a threat assessment. And
Could
then
be any
it,
of those, yeah.
and then it does say, if necessary, the board may impose an additional 5 days, prior to a formal hearing for any student subject to expulsion.
Yeah, I don't know these forms well enough, cause I swear we put that on a form last week.
We
the
did.
Same thing, didn't we, just cause we were like, we need to let them know.
Yeah, we do. So I guess, my suggestion would be, we just knock all this out, given the fact that this is not going to be on the board, or on the board's policy page. This is an administrative form, but I do think, well, my thought is that the board will say, this is the way it should be. And that if the board does that, then I guess it's just up to administration, but I think if the board gives directive that we do need to include, you know, notice if that temporary suspension, because it's going, I get it, we're now using it for all, cause we haven't been, but it's what I heard you say.
Yep.
But now that we're using it for all, maybe you need a couple of different ones. So you have for the simple, you have notice of temporary suspension template for
From
if it's
the
0 to
building.
3, and you have the temporary suspension for going to expulsion hearing, so that it has all the necessary information for that specific situation and parent, meaning, you know, you're going, because whatever little Johnny did, we now have a threat assessment that you need to be aware of is being made, and I know you're saying that you've verbally done this, but we all know document, document, document. So if you have it on the form, they're made aware that there's a threat assessment that's ongoing, which is why they have all these extra days, and it's leading to maybe a formal hearing. That information's already been communicated. Does that make sense? What I'm trying to say is maybe just one form doesn't cover every incident. So maybe there could be 5 forms, because this is all administrative procedure. I think we sometimes try to pigeonhole everything into one form for everything, and that doesn't work.
I agree with you that sometimes that doesn't work. Sometimes we need to customize things a little bit. I think honestly, my thought is I'm still kind of stuck on, like, if the board decides that this is just an administrative procedure,
Mm-hmm.
then the conversation is kind of over. Like, we're gonna,
We can do, if
we're
we
gonna
want 3
take
forms,
it
we
and
want
we're,
3.
yeah, and
We want
Absolutely.
one form with check boxes.
we'll, yep, we'll.
I don't know. They said take them on.
We'll deal with that. We're getting rid of all the check boxes, you guys. But we, you know, we'll take care of that. I think if the board decides that they want to keep this notice as kind of to maintain the level of formality, I think that's where I would be really curious the direction from the board on what they do want included there. Cause I think we've gone, even in this conversation, I think we've gone back and forth a little
Got
bit
all around the
on-
mulberry bush.
Yeah, on like what do we actually want to include here? So that's not a helpful statement, I have
The
more
only
questions
thing
than
that's really
answers.
important is consistency.
Absolutely.
From building to building, principal
Yes.
to principal.
Yep.
In how you, walk through those protocols.
Yes.
I agree,
That's
100%.
part.
And I know that we've taken a while to get the consistency flowing, which, you know, I'm grateful for the work that every administrator's put in to make that happen. So, well, 7:01. We are gonna stop recording because policy's over.